Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So this is episode 2 on the Robart P-47 project. So you can see here, what I've done is I've used some balsa sticks to tack the cowling back together where I want it. And then I've used some masking tape to cover up the rest of that area. And so I've scuffed that surface with some 80 grit sandpaper and cleaned it. And so now I'm gonna lay up some fiberglass in there to make this one piece again. And then after that, I'll see about, as it's only like one layer thick, it's pretty thin. After that, we'll see about beefing it up a little bit more if we need to. But yeah, so once the glass work's done, I can kind of come in here and blend these out nicer. And I may even fill this in a little bit on the sides to kind of help make the hole a little smaller. But we'll see how it looks. Honestly, it's not bad. It's not overly wide looking. So anyways, yeah, this method actually works too. The balsa stick method works too. Like if you have a fiberglass airplane and you crash it and you need to repair some damage, you can kind of like tack things back together with balsa sticks and then glue it from the inside, or lay up fiberglass on the inside and then body work the outside when you're done. And that's one way to fix a fiberglass airplane. So this is like an old school technique kind of a thing. I kind of put my own spin on it with the tape, but it works, and the resin won't really stick to the tape. So once it's cured, you can just pull the tape off. And then I'll come back and I'll Bondo this side, the outside of it, smooth it out, a little bit of primer, and should be good to go. So no biggie. All right, guys, welcome back to episode 2 of the Robart P-47 DLE 222 conversion. So I got my firewalls made and glued together, and I'm in the process of figuring out mounting position and my scale exhaust situation here. So I got to open up some spots. In fact, the vents that are on the fuselage are right here, so it works out nice. I'll get some airflow around all this to keep the fuselage from getting too warm. But anyways, the plan is to shorten these, use some silicone couplers with clamps, and then build a short down and out pipe from copper piping, like plumbing type piping, which, you know, we'll do the job. It's not pretty, but should work. So I need to go to the store and kind of look, see what they got. But as far as sizes and angles and all the rest of that stuff, but I pretty much got the positioning of the motor all set up, and I got the cowling out here. I did a quick layup on it last night, just a couple of layers to get it started. So you can see I used my tape and the sticks to hold together. And you can see my layers of fiberglass in here. This isn't real heavy glass. The plan is to get it kind of together with this, and then I'll sand it all. I ran out of resin, so I'm going to have to go buy some resin. And I'll do a nice solid layup of probably maybe a couple layers of carbon and then some glass in here. Really stiffen this up, and much like the Corsair, I'll probably end up cutting out the lower half to ease installation of cowling and have access to the motor for maintenance type stuff, carburetor adjustments and everything else like that. So these 222s are kind of a pain in the butt to adjust. The mufflers are in the way of the screws for on the carburetors, so you can't just put a hole in the side of the cowling and adjust the screws. They're like this, so they're kind of, I guess you could, but it'd just be not fun. So they're at an angle to get to them. But anyways, so far it's looking like everything's going to be all right. I got my prop drill jig set up. I painted the tips yellow. I did shorten the tips a little bit and round them a little bit more. They were kind of pointy. So anywho, I'm going to run this on the Corsair later just to see what kind of RPM it turns. And hopefully that'll be all I need to do. Is if this matches about what the prop in the Corsair does, then I'll be fine. which is not a lot on the ground. It definitely unloads a lot in the air. Still not turning it super hard, so even in the air this might only get to 5,000. But anyways, that's where we're at. So I gotta get the firewall glued in and then fiberglassed in, and then once that's all done, then I can concentrate on finishing up the cowling, and I'll be working on normal stuff like servo installation and landing gear stuff while this is all curing. So work smarter, not harder. All right, guys, so I have temporarily mocked up the firewall and the cowling just so I can take a good look at everything and kind of figure it all out before I finalize the firewall install. But yeah, it looks pretty good. I don't think the cowling looks terrible. I mean, it's a little wide, I guess, but once you put that giant prop on it and the fake radial and all the rest of the goodies inside there, I don't think you're really going to notice that much. So let me toss the smaller prop on it, and by smaller I mean 28 inch. It's not terrible. It's close to scale. Scale's 30 inch for the P-47, and it's kind of neat that the P-47 and the Corsair are the same scale. It's pretty cool. So not bad. I mean, I'm pretty picky about certain things, and I don't think that cowling looks bad at all. And as you can see, I've got plenty of cooling exit area. Like I said, this is all just temporarily just kind of like set up. It's not installed or anything. I'm just getting a good look at it, making sure it's what I want before I finalize the firewall install. So it's all going to be baffled, and to where the cooling is actually going to come in through the bottom of the cowling on this one, because I have so much area here. Bottom of the cowling in the intercooler scoop area, and then it's going to essentially be blocked off on the front of the fake radial and along the sides, and so it's going to come in, probably hit the back wall, up and out. So, and the front's going to have, the front cylinders will have kind of some direct exposed air to them. The Corsair is going to be the same way, and the Bearcat's the same way. So everyone's talking about rear cylinders getting hot and stuff, and to be fair, I should have had telemetry on these airplanes for cylinder temperatures, but they just run so happy. I really don't think that it's an issue at this time. So anyways, if my theory holds true, the air comes in, it's going to hit the firewall, come up through the back cylinders and out the sides and out the top. So that's my theory anyways. Corsair right now has no baffling, and the motor seems plenty happy, although it's running very rich at the moment still. And I probably won't lean it out that much more, because that prop's a lot of load, and I don't want to, and it's, you know, we got cool temperatures right now, so in the summertime or when it warms up, I don't have to worry about it. So anyways, that's where we're at. Everything's mocked up. I just need to bond the firewall in now, and yeah, carry on with some normal assembly type stuff. All right, so I went ahead and picked up some West Systems resin so I can finish my cowling since I ran out. I used finishing resin, like Z-epoxy finishing resin, for these couple of plies here, and Z-epoxy finishing resin works great for finishing. It's not the strongest resin though. I was being impatient last night, and anyways, I'm gonna scuff the hole inside of this thing, and I'm gonna do a few layers of some heavier cloth with the West Systems, and I'm also going to be bonding in the firewall. So I've removed it, cut out sections where the exhaust is going to go, and I can stick this in a second, but essentially I need to hog these out. I was able to find some copper tubing that should work pretty well actually. So the exhaust size is a little smaller than the muffler size itself, but I'm really not concerned about losing a tiny bit of power, if any at all. Not because it's just not going to need it. So it's one of the nice things about stupid overpowered airplanes is you don't really need, especially on a P-47. So, but I did test run the prop on the Corsair, and the RPM is almost exactly the same as it is with the slightly larger 3-blade. So that's good news. That means I can run this 4-blade. I'm hoping to fly it on the Bearcat this weekend and give that a whirl. Still waiting on my Synapse receiver. Probably going to just end up putting a normal receiver in the Bearcat for now. I mean, flew fine before without a gyro, so I'm not super concerned about that. But anyways, I got the inside of the fuselage all scuffed up because I'm going to be doing some wet ties in here with fiberglass once the firewall's bonded in place. And yeah, it should be nice and strong. And yeah, looking forward to getting this firewall on it and kind of move forward with everything else. As you can see, I got some bland nuts in here, and I've cut out my hole for the push rod for the throttle, and then I got 3 holes here, one for the carburetor fuel, one for vent, and one for smoke vent. So hoping to put smoke on this one. I definitely have a ton of room for fuel and other things inside of this fuselage compared to the Corsair, which honestly there isn't that much room up there just because of where the wing comes through the fuselage and then where they had all the structure inside. So that one's going to be more challenging to get my smoke stuff into, but P-47's, I mean, geez. So I'm going to build a shelf coming off of this structure here, and it's going to be removable. I'm going to have the throttle servo on the bottom side of that plate, and the fuel tank and smoke tank will go on top here. And then there'll probably be a spot for batteries if I have to run my packs that far forward for CG purposes. But yeah, moving along. So let me get this firewall glued in. All right, guys, it is the next morning, and I got my Bearcat down because probably taking this flying on Sunday. And I thought it'd be cool to get the Bearcat and the Corsair together. Now, a lot of people try and tell me that the blue on this Bearcat's too dark, and this color really changes depending on the light. So I was considering not spraying the Corsair in this particular blue, but I think I'm going to. Something taken off. It's really pretty for one, but two, it is the right color, and it really just depends on the lighting, especially when you see pictures of the full scale. It really changes things. So if it's cloudy or dark outside, then it looks almost black. But when the sun's on it, especially when the sun's low, I mean, that color looks right to me. So anyways, also for some reason I feel like the color on this thing has changed over time, and that could be because of micro scratching from wiping it down and stuff like that. But anyways, we also got a new prop on the Bearcat. It's a 30-inch SEP propeller. I don't care for the hub, but I mean, the blades themselves look pretty sweet, and the size is pretty much exactly scale now. So it was a little small with a 28-inch on there. Anyways, let's get back to the P-47 now that I'm done drooling on my own airplanes. So the cowling is done. Well, mostly. Let me pick this thing up from over here because it's sharp. I've done a couple layers of carbon and some glass. Now this would be a little bit nicer, but I'm using scraps from work, and so it's not really pretty, but it is so much stiffer. This thing was like a wet noodle once I pulled that bulkhead that was in the back of it out. So now that it's all cured up, I'll trim up the little sharp edges. I'll get this tape and balsa wood off, and then I can do some Bondo work on the separation area and get all that sorted out. And then, yeah, this thing will be in business. I do plan on cutting off the lower half as a hatch once I get it all mounted up and everything, just because it makes working on the motors really easy, and it makes installing the cowling a lot easier as well. The Bearcat has a really big cowl, and so squeezing that one over the spark plugs isn't a huge deal, but the Corsair was really tight, and once I put the spark plug boots on, it was basically impossible to get the cowling on it without having that lower section taken off. So the P-47 cowling being even tighter in the width department is going to be a challenge as well. So I'll try it first without cutting it, but it's probably going to end up getting cut. So we'll see. And the fuselage, I got my, we call it nugget at work. It's a mixture of Cavasil and resin. Use that as an adhesive paste. So this thing is all bonded into place. I got my cowl mounts bonded in with it. And yeah, that's where we're at. I gotta make a tray for the fuel tank and the throttle servo. Actually, the fuel tank might be sitting right here because the CG is like, it's way back here. So the nose on the nose on a P-47 is pretty long compared to a Corsair or especially a Bearcat. So what that really means is that there's a lot of weight up here, and I'm gonna end up putting servos for the tails in the back instead of, they were supposed to be on a tray right here with super long push rods, which I'm not a fan of anyways. It just didn't seem like it would work that spectacular. The push rods were supposed to go through this bulkhead, then you just get like rubbing and I don't know, and then they're supposed to pass through that rear bulkhead. It just seemed like on a really big, potentially fast model, I don't like push rod setups like that. Especially because the elevators themselves, the way they're hinged, they don't move super free. Like they're not nice and loose and easy to move. So I think having a push rod would just make that issue even worse. So anyways, yeah, we're gonna get that fuselage kind of dialed in today. Then we're gonna start messing with probably tails first, get the fuselage done, and then start messing with the wings. But oof. Oh, that Bearcat's sweet. I just hope the freaking landing gear work. Gosh dang it. So, this is the cowling post trimming and a little bit of grinding here and there. Got it all cleaned up. I got these upper and lower areas kind of blended in a little bit better. Obviously, we're going to need some Bondo work, but, you know, it's not too crazy considering. I will have lost all the panel line and rivet detail in these areas, so I'm going to have to go back once there's primer on here and add that in the future. But for now, I'm going to be repainting this whole airplane at some point. So I don't know that I'm going to repaint the checkered cowling just yet. Maybe I will. I don't know. Unfortunately, because I added it in the center, I can't just elongate these checkers and fix it that way. That would have been super easy. But anyways, so that's the cowling. I guess I need to do some Bondo work now just to kind of clean up these areas, a little bit of primer. I'll probably sand the whole thing, prime it, and maybe just paint it silver with red or yellow on the front just to mix it up. But so you guys can see, I got these Eric's here, which are kind of cool. No pun intended. I am going to be running the exhaust out of here, so I got to open those up. Basically, I'm going to clean up this firewall a little bit. I didn't do that. I should have just cleaned it up last night while I was doing this. But anyways, I may end up adding some glass inside to tie it in. This is a pretty strong fuselage, especially compared to the Corsair. The Corsair, I just glued the firewall in, although on the Corsair it's glued to some wood framework inside, although it's kind of crappy wood. But this is a pretty solid model. It's got a number of bulkheads in it, which is super nice, unlike the Corsair, which only has a couple. So it's a pretty solid model. I don't think structurally it needs the glass to help hold the firewall on or anything like that. These motors, you guys kind of freak out because it's a big motor. It's a big, heavy motor. I'll give you that. But they run really, really smooth. And that 3-blade does not run very smooth. It's not horrible. I did some kind of like dynamic balancing on it and smoothed it out a little bit. It's still better than like a big single cylinder. This 4-blade, which is what I probably will end up running on the P-47. When I ran it yesterday, it ran really, really smooth, like the Bailiff 4-blade props that I've been using. Those also run very smooth. So there's not a lot of vibration, nothing like that. And because I'm not doing like 3D aerobatics, There's not a ton of gyroscopic load on this firewall area, so I figure if the Corsair is working, then this should definitely work. So I may or may not glass the inside. One of the reasons I would not is I really can't get to the upper ones. I can't see what I'm doing, so I guess I could use a mirror or something, but I could do some glass in the lower and a little bit on the sides. I just don't know how much benefit that's really going to add or give me. Again, if I was doing like 3D maneuvers or something like that, where there's going to be a ton of gyroscopic load on the firewall, especially with the big heavy prop, and there was a lot of vibration, you know, I would definitely consider it. But this is 1/2-inch plywood that is not going anywhere, and it is glued really, really well to the fuselage. So I don't know. I may still end up adding some glass, might not, but I guess we'll see. Anyway, so just got to do some body work on this and decide what I'm doing with the firewall, and then I will continue on with the rest of the assembly. But essentially, once I figure out the servo position and the tank, all this stuff in here, once I get that sorted out, basically the engine installation portion of it is essentially done. So then it's just kind of standard issue assembly work after that. I don't call these builds because they're not builds. They're assemblies. Even though it's being modified, it's an assembly. This took me a year to build. That was a build. That little kit over there, I built that. Took me about a month. And this Corsair over here, I built that one. You know, there's a lot of airplanes in here. This FA6, that's a kit. That's built. But when someone says they built a model and it's something like this, I'm sorry, guys. You didn't build it. You assembled it. So you threw some servos in it. You know, it takes work, no doubt. It takes hours. But, you know, I'll probably have 100 hours into this by the time it's flying. And something like this had 1,000 hours in it or more, you know. This might even only be like 50 or 60 hours. The Corsair took me, I don't know, 5 days, 6 days. I mean, long days, no doubt. But, yeah, that's not a build. This airplane, I probably have a couple 100 hours in at this point, but I didn't build this kit technically. I refurbished it. I redesigned a bunch of stuff, rebuilt a bunch of things, did a bunch of stuff myself, canopy, etc. And rebuilt the tails and all the servo setups, the paint job, the cowling work, firewall modifications, a lot of stuff in that one, but that's not a build. Anyways, now I'm just rambling, but yeah, I just kind of laugh when guys say that especially when it's something like a foamy ARF. Like you literally pulled 5 pieces out of a box, put 4 screws in it, and bound your radio to it. It's not really a build, but not that's a bad thing. I think any involvement in the hobby is great. I just feel like we should use the proper descriptive words for what we're doing. But anyways, that was quite the tangent there, but I might stop the video here because I think we're already up to about 10 or 12 minutes worth of footage. So I will get this uploaded probably tonight because I just loaded the first one last night. And yeah, the next time I do a video, it'll probably be assembly work, and I'll probably have the engine mounted and all that stuff. I do have to fuel-proof the firewall still. So since I'm going to be doing that, I got to mix resin. I'll probably end up doing some fiberglass on the inside, just because I'm going to have resin mixed, and why not? So that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and like always, we'll see you in the next one.